joined the space.
How are you
Namaste.
doing the yoga pose?
Oh my god.
Uh,
The yoga
it's
pose
difficult.
is so cool.
Because I thought so. Because I'm on standalone. I thought that was your AFK pose, and I'm like, no,
No.
he's moving.
This
In
is
real
my
time.
enlightenment pose. This is like when I go to, just
That's pretty badass.
I'm
He
less
was
interested in
flow.
your
Walk,
VR
You
pose.
were
Are you doing
flow.
Talk to your walk. Your walk.
if you're doing that in real life, that's what I really want to know. How do you do that in real life?
if you grab my hand, I'll show you like the reality.
That's all right.
When
Well,
you said
listen,
that, I was afraid. I was afraid to attempt that.
let's,
I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'm gonna keep it to the
Let's
video
kick it
a
off,
little
guys.
bit. All right.
So yeah, welcome to our weekly AMA. I see lots of cool new people, lots of regular people that I'm familiar with, but
Ellie has
some of them
joined the
in
space.
cool new outfits, which is really awesome. There's some stuff there that I'm intrigued by that I definitely want to hear more about later. Oh no. Oh no.
Oh, snap crackle.
Aline couldn't see me on the platform, so because she joined late, she came over to just bump me a little bit so the platform would come up for her. That's what happened there. Yeah, anyway, so this is the Banter-Ama, as we call it, or the Ask Me Anything, as I'm hoping you guys are fairly familiar with the format of things. But generally, the idea is if you've got a question, you can simply make your way up to the front of the beach, right in front of the panel, at which point I'll be more than happy to megaphone you so that everybody in the space can hear you, and other spaces if we've got those going
HBR
too.
has joined the space.
So yeah, that's pretty much how it works. So usually this is the awkward moment where we wait for the first person. Who's it gonna be that's actually gonna jump up and ask that question? And then, oh, there we go. Vivid Bronze, you're gonna kick us off for the day. Go ahead, you're megaphoned.
Is that me?
That's
Yes,
you.
it actually is.
Oh, okay. Are you one of the? So I've been here all like 30 seconds. I just got in here. I take it you're one of the developers, maybe.
That's right.
Welcome.
Do you think this will be? My question is, that was not the question. I guess it's a two-part question. My
That's
question
okay.
is, do you think this will be developed for the Apple Vision Pro?
I hope so. Is my question to that, right? I need to try to get my hands on one, and I'm one of the unfortunate people who's in Europe, as is a few of my engineers. So it's trying to traverse that situation. But yeah, as soon as we do get our hands on it, then yeah, absolutely, we're pretty excited to try to get it working on Apple Vision Pro and maybe some other upcoming hand tracking based headsets that could be on the horizon too.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions? No.
I got another one.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, shoot. Yeah.
So I don't want to be selfish, but nobody's got any other questions. What in your opinion, and maybe if you can speak for the others, what do you see the future of Banter to be? Do you want it to compete with VR chat, or do you want to go in a different direction? Like, what kind of direction do you want to take this in?
That's a good question. I guess would I be right in saying maybe you want to know what's unique about Banter, or is it going to be just the same as something else? Is that what you're asking?
What's your vision? What's your vision for Banter to be? I mean, it's fairly new. It looks like some of the features are not working exactly, probably like you plan for them to work as of right now, and it looks like that some more features are going to be made. But I mean, do you want it just to compete with VR chat, or become something all completely different?
I mean, it certainly will compete with VR chat, right? We're a social VR app, they're a social VR app. We're absolutely eager to try and capture the attention of that same audience. So, yeah, absolutely. In that broad sense, we'll definitely be interested in competing with VR chat. But I think there's a few things about Banter that we'll be focusing on that VR chat doesn't and may never have. So those are going to be where we kind of put our energy, I think.
And what would those be?
Well, we've got advanced physics, right? So there's kind of built-in ability to just climb on things, climb in every world. All that kind of stuff is built in, right? You can even do parkour, right? You can pull yourself up over a ledge by just using physics. So that's one element that I think is definitely unique about what we've got here. And then another part I think that's probably pretty unique is how integrated Banter is with the internet and with browsers and so forth, right? This is me obviously on the video stream, but if I stepped off the stage, you'll see some beautiful visuals which are projected from a YouTube video, right? We have a shared YouTube playlist system in the space, and we're using that to project the visuals throughout the space. That's just one example of how we're integrating browsers into the world, but also every world you visit in Banter is effectively a website. Each one of them has a web address. You can host your world in Banter on your own website, for instance. So that's just some stuff, I guess. Oh, there I am up there. Hello. That's just some stuff, I guess, that's going to be different here compared to, let's say, anywhere else.
Well, that answers the question. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivid.
Thank you.
And get with one of us later on. We can show you how to log in and everything too, if you'd like. Get on. Art, you next?
Go ahead, Art.
Yeah, unless somebody else wants to go, because I know I sometimes ask often. So
Shoot.
I had a kind of a continuation of a question I asked you last week or the other week about the evolution of adoption of AR and XR and just any kind of adjacent technology, whether it's metaverse and so on, and a somewhat commentary, less of a question, I guess, that I wanted to throw out there. Something that was, in my opinion, transformative for XR was the game Demio. I mean, I don't think anyone's gonna even breathe in the direction that is just an awesome game, just full stop. And the reason why I specifically mentioned that is because it represents, in my opinion, a very wasted opportunity as far as just XR adoption, as far as it demonstrates irrefutably proof of concept that you can have a massive evolution in board gaming. Now, there's on a Venn diagram, I guarantee you'd find a good degree of overlap between people who are of the mindset of enjoying board games and also just any kind of gaming in general, including VR. And to get to my point, here in Columbus, Ohio, for example, we have a venue that happens pretty often called Origins. It's a gaming conference for board games. I think that things like this would be a very good showcase. Like if there was more things like Demio, like let's say we take the game Axis and Allies. I don't know if you've played that or not before, but it's a strategy game. You could have an evolution of that game where you can now have Fog of War, something that literally would be impossible as far as a practical board game. And there's this is something that would give a lot of interest for people who are in that particular genre of board games, for example. And to strategically find existing things that people are interested in and give that compartmentalized proof of concept, like, hey, this is why you should care about this, like for example at Origin show, like, hey, this is a completely new dynamic of board games that's only possible with mixed reality. And in other places where there would be other different conferences and venues demonstrate this is how XR is specifically useful, because a lot of the demonstrations that are done on the internet, and I'm not saying this to rip on Facebook, because I know that's just such an easy thing to do, but a lot of the VR conferences that have been done by Meta have been frankly embarrassing. Like the last Meta Connect, I'm sorry, it was awkward to watch at best, and we're fans of it. Whereas if we go to where the people have gamers, specifically in this case, demonstrate, like to people who might not be into VR, but demonstrate, hey, here's why you care. This is something that would allow for adoption. Now, that's just general commentary, and I think that that's something that would be much more useful as far as kind of treating this as kind of like we're dealers, creating a gateway drug to get people into the the market. And play that inside of these kind of venues, because this is a way you could just come together, load up your pre-licensed copy from your Quest or even via Steam or whatever the platform you have it on. I know that gets into very, very complicated back and forth again with the licensing and the overlapping software, but that's just the general commentary I want to put out there and see what your thoughts are about a lot. And I know I once again threw a whole bunch of stuff all at once, but whatever you have to say about that.
Thank you, Ark. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, really, isn't it? I mean, I think as the technology evolves, we're going to get closer towards the kind of ubiquitous device that you'll be happy to wear all the time, right? Something that's a lot smaller form factor and can be AR, VR. It can kind of swap between that. Maybe the Apple Vision Pro is like the early glimpse of that. But I think the content is always going to really evolve to suit your mood, probably more than anything else, right? Do you want to sit down and play a board game with your friends, or do you want to watch a lengthy movie and be completely engrossed and completely immersed in it? And a board game with your friends defines whether you're going to.
Zellrainer has joined the space.
You're playing with other people. So I think when it comes to board games, in order to probably enjoy those, it's more of a casual interaction with the 3D content rather than a full immersion. And I think mixed reality is going to be the perfect thing for that. Eventually, augmented reality, right? Through augmented reality as opposed to kind of pass through, which is what all the devices are doing right now today. I mean, what you're talking about is really interesting as well, about how these games could integrate across the board. And it's, yeah, I mean, it's like blurring the lines, right? A lot of these big corporates really want to kind of lock in their closed garden and have it all defined and controlled and all that kind of stuff. But then it really starts to kind of become like, what is an app? What constitutes an app? Is it just a DLC for another app? What's a platform, right? You've got Roblox that's now on Quest, and that is an entire platform in itself, right? And yeah, I mean, I think it's just interesting to see. Tribe is one example of maybe a game that I've seen that's actually approached this model, where they might take functionality from their own game and integrate that into other games, right? Wasn't Tribe integrated with the Wave when the Wave was big and popular, and people could use Tribe with that,
The
right? And that's a kind of a
methods. Right.
exactly.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. Maybe there's some way to create a possibility to integrate these, let's say, more confined experiences of board games into other games and start to blur those lines further.
Something to think about is Tabletop Simulator. It's definitely kind of the same vibe that you're talking about there.
Yeah. But I guess most of that in this day and age, it probably boils down to licensing agreements with those individual games, right? Can we license a bit of your content, make it available as a DLC in our game, like that kind of a thing? Or in some cases, depending on the license of the existing game, like you've seen Holograms Against Humanity is here in Banter, right? Holograms is obviously a play on the original Cards Against Humanity game. Cards Against Humanity is an open source card game, which means you're free to use it, use the mechanic, all of that stuff. You can do all of that. The requirement being that you re-release whatever you create. like open source is often like that. But that allows us to take the source for it, make a slight alteration. We can't use the branding, but we can use the game logic. And that's how we have Holograms Against Humanity here in Banter. And the source code for it is available under the same terms of the license under which we got it, right? So you're right. It doesn't matter really. There's always licensing to kind of deal with when it comes to this stuff, and you have to comply with that. You have to adhere to that. That's obviously very important. But yeah, I don't know. That's a lot of random waffle answers to hopefully some of the questions that or comments that you made in there. But yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a really there's going to be a revolution, let's say, a little bit within what we're doing this year. I think content is going to have to evolve to exist without controllers. Right? I think that's going to be a huge thing this year because of Vision Pro and what everybody is going to be trying to push towards building the same thing as that. And a controllerless setup is really what people are going to be trying to adapt, right? Which in itself has the possibility to drive down the price of the more entry-level headsets. We know the Quest Lite is rumored to come out at some point soon. And it's rumored to ship without controllers and likely will feature hand tracking by default, right? I am pretty sure that a number of other OEMs and ODMs and vendors are going to be trying to accommodate that controllerless world as well, which we are too, right? Let's be honest. We've got to try and embrace that too. I mean, an opportunity to be on the front lines on a new device, a new frontier of controllerless devices. And as we try to move into that kind of a world, I don't know. I think it's going to be exciting, and a lot of people are going to have to adjust.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so let's see. I'll just take you off Megaphone Arc. Thanks for that. Discord Kitty, I see you're kind of close to the front of the beach. I don't know if you have a question or if you're just hanging out. You're just hanging out. Okay, no problem. Let's see. Casper, I see you're close. Oh, Iron Wolf, I see your hand up. You got a question? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I'm struggling a little bit with my own space, and I'm thinking hands-on workshop could be really nice for us that haven't done our own space, so to speak, so good. So I know many people here are really good, and you can go ask them for tips and tricks and everything like that. But it would be real nice to have like a time slot here with a workshop or something like that you can join and ask questions and do things like that.
Thank you, Iron Wolf. I've just been gesturing towards Aline, who's hiding up in the hot tub up there, to see if she has any thoughts on something like that, right? It would be obviously quite a bit more valuable if Aline was doing something like that. Aline, what do you think? Any thoughts?
No.
No thoughts? No thoughts. I like that.
No problem. We can do that.
Something we were joking about today, in fact, something we were talking about, right? We recently did the Bantathon competition. It's actually still ongoing. We've had another round of submissions yesterday, and we're actually working through them as we speak for the next round of prizes to be announced. And we're looking forward to doing the award ceremony for that as well, right? That's something that's still coming. But in that same breath, we were kind of realizing, or Aline was realizing as she was going through these spaces today, how great would it be to have the creator there to actually give us a tour and to show us this space as they intend it, and to be able to kind of interview the creator about what it is they did, why they did it, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we were just generally talking about more back and forth interaction and potentially also a collaboration, right? We were possibly thinking in future that maybe we can have a more structured approach to ourselves, or more specifically Aline being able to help specific people with their worlds and specific things that they're doing in their worlds, right? If we can. Like we toyed with the idea of doing like a world creator giveaway where you get so many hours of Aline's time working on your world, right? So yeah, we're looking for as many ways as we possibly can to try to shortcut the process and try and make it easier. We're looking for it ways to try to get some materials like tutorials and stuff together for making worlds, getting started with making worlds, as well as now also creating avatars, right? Because we've got a number of people who are exploring doing that too.
Yeah,
So
and for example, the SDK 004, where you can find it on Discord if you look for it, but it's not on the website.
Yeah.
It's, things like that could be improved a little bit as well.
Sure. Yeah. No, absolutely. Things are a little bit up in the air right now because just before this event, I came straight out of kind of head down in the next big iteration of our SDK, which is a complete rebuild from the ground up, right? So as it stands right now, you can kind of consider our current SDK to kind of be in maintenance mode almost while we build this new one. So apologies, things are scattered. You're absolutely right there. We need to do better. And with SDK, hopefully, SDK V2, hopefully we can start out as we mean to go on and have a better update flow and better documentation and better everything really when it comes to the new SDK. So better samples, right? And tutorials and everything kind of included, right? That's what we're hoping for.
Because I'm struggling to do something with A-frame things and everything like that, and I have to speak to people to understand what I'm doing wrong and everything like that. I cannot find it on the website or tutorials or anything. So.
Well, listen, don't be afraid to ask. We're all pretty friendly. I'm sure I can speak for all the world creators on here. You know, you can always ask, and I'll be happy to sort of try and point you in the direction. I'd always rather that, right? And that is extended to pretty much everyone. You know, instead of you spending any amount of time really banging your head off the wall trying to figure it out, just come and ping us, because that might save you 20 minutes, 40 minutes, 2 hours of trying to work out why I've done something crazy the way I've done it, right? So, but a lot of the pain that we've kind of learned from the existing system is really what's driving the motivation to build the new one. So the real hope there is that we can try to solve a lot of these problems, as many of these problems as we can. Thankfully, there's a massive pile of feedback there that we're working through, and we're going to go through that a few different times really to make sure that we hit all the important points. And then I'm sure there'll be a few adjustments after it goes live too, but really we're trying to learn our lesson with this one and really focus on trying to make it better, because we tried using it ourselves a few times and we felt the pain. So
Thank you very much, Shane.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Ark, I see you're motioning towards the front. Have you got another question for us?
Yeah, unless somebody else does. So again, slightly less of a question, more of a general comment. I've asked before about wanting to get into doing world creation myself, and I'm obviously completely new, so I'm downloading right now as we're talking on my PC, Unity and all the stuff with it. Anyway, the thing I want to create is something that has been talked about actually for decades, like going back even to an episode of The Simpsons, from like 30 years ago. Lisa wanted to have VR headsets that would let her, have an educational experience, and have that, be funded for other schools. I mean, it literally goes back that far. That is something that has been talked about, on numerous platforms. Like Thea on one of her Twitch streams a couple weeks ago was even talking about that. Like, she hopes that there's going to be, ultimately, VR and MR and being able to utilize it as an educational resource. To that end, one of the things, if I figure out what the heck I'm doing with, Unity and whatever, I would like to, start, building things. I'm a huge fan of Sid Meier's Civilization, particularly the Wonders of the World were like one of the coolest things in Civilization. For anyone who ever played the game series, I would like to start working on building, the different wonders of the world as, individual worlds. And by the way, anyone else is welcome to, jump on that if that's something that interests them. I'm not trying to take ownership of that idea whatsoever. But to back up, all the way back to the early 1980s, Carl Sagan once said in the Cosmos series, if he could go anywhere in time and space, it would be back to the Great Library of Alexandria. And then they had him in a CGI for the quality of the time of mock-up of the Great Library of Alexandria. That is such a really cool idea that we could potentially now have educational platforms inside of things, maybe like VR chat and banter, where you could have, kids come in and, actually interactively learn about history at really cool places like, the Great Pyramids, the Hanging Gardens, and kind of be a interactive version of Wikipedia that has all these like factoids and loaded AI teaching tours that, both children and adults can, learn about, just absolutely important parts of, history, during the ancient wonders of the world, the classical wonders of the world, and all the things that, would associate to that. So this is less of, a question, more just a general comment, and hopefully inspiring maybe someone else to be interested in, taking this and going that next step with it. Because it's one of the great problems in our society is just there's been just such a collapse in appreciation for education and the importance of understanding history. And this is another tool I could see to be potentially making history interesting for people and the evolution it means to our society, where we are. So again, less question, more commentary, and whatever you want to say about that is cool.
I mean, I think that sounds awesome. Any kind of new use case for VR to me is always kind of interesting. There's another company in the space actually called Solarix. I'm not sure if they still exist actually at this point, but you may know them better for another similar social VR app called Neos VR. They actually started in the education sector doing almost exactly what you're describing, building and providing virtual reality experience for kids to be able to learn stuff. We've seen kind of along the way on SideQuest, even from the very earliest days, there's been apps that provide the necessary capability for an educational environment, right? Like, remote control facilities so that teachers can kind of guide students through experiences remotely from their own computer and be able to see what everybody's seeing, all of those necessary tools to be able to do that kind of stuff, safely and yeah. So I mean, I think it's exciting, right? Because what you're talking about really is e-learning, right? I don't know if anybody's ever done e-learning, but e-learning sucks, right? And the thing about it is e-learning kind of is built in a way where they already know that it sucks, right? And the reason is they jam 800% of the information that they need to into you in the hopes that you'll remember 100%, right? But having the immersive environment of VR, can you imagine if we had that when we were kids and that's what we learned about in school? How awesome would that be? How much more informed would we be? How much more engaged would we have been at the time? Every single thing we were learning about would have felt like, a video game. And when you're a kid, that's a whole lot of fun. I
Learning
think
doesn't have to suck.
Exactly. It
Yes.
doesn't. It would be really
It's
hard to
memorable.
find a reason for it to suck if it was like that, I think that's going to be amazing. I think the next generation of schooling, they're going to have a much better time than any of the rest of us did. And I'm really excited to see how this kind of technology can broaden beyond the obvious dominating vertical it's in right now, which is gaming and that sort of stuff. And this is this is one of a few different ones that are definitely really interesting. Fitness is probably right up there as another next biggest kind of vertical in that sense. But education and maybe even other enterprise applications, training, all sorts of things, whether it's adults or kids or whoever it is. Clearly this technology is going to make it easier to absorb the information. And if you look it up, actually, there are a number of studies that have already been done around this. And like the retention rates for information you learn in VR are like in the high 80s in terms of percentage versus, the traditional method where things are sort of lower towards 10 to 20% retention of information. So clearly, that's a hell of a lot more effective and a hell of a lot more efficient, probably quite a lot cheaper. Those are all of the ingredients you need in order for innovation to really flourish, let's say. So I think you're absolutely right. if we see another large wave of adoption, because that's how these things go, right? Usually you just see these big waves that continue and get bigger and bigger. And that's what we've seen in VR, right? We had one in 2016, we had one in 2020. The next one I think will likely be driven by, the lowest price point we've seen for a new headset, plus all of the major big companies coming in, right? And if we end up with something like the Quest Lite, let's say, I always talk about it like it's real. I don't know if it's real or not, right? But I've heard things like the rest of us. But something that cheap could end up, maybe democratized, maybe opened up in terms of an enterprise use case, and then applied to the classroom environment. Then it could just be cheap enough. You remember when we kind of moved from chalk and blackboards to now interactive whiteboards and short throw projectors and all of that kind of technology? Well, it could slowly start to replace that, I think, maybe, potentially, if the infrastructure's there and it's cheap enough.
And the current solution still sucks. But
What's the current solution?
yeah, I mean, smart whiteboards and all that stuff, that's still annoying, and you can't concentrate, so most people lose patience very quickly. But now
Yeah.
with the rise of AI, with ChatGPT, with Midjourney, DALL-E 3, Stable Diffusion, and so on, with all the voice generation, and now also upcoming 3D model generation, and soon there will be full 3D environment generation. Just imagine, you just go into a room, say you want to learn something new, and ChatGPT will grab an article from Wikipedia, will write it interesting, exciting, generate everything around it, and you get it presented by a natural voice. And that would be something that can completely be automated. So no one has to prepare those things or has to work on it. It's just all there.
Exactly. In the voice of somebody, iconic from history, the person who originally, made the discovery could be the one who's teaching you about it. And that's how seamless it can be, right? That's the future. That's the future we've kind of imagined. It's been depicted in TV shows and movies quite a lot, right? Everything from, say, Star Trek to Ready Player One. We're definitely hovering around that area. But listen, I need to actually cut us off now because we're a couple minutes into another event which I need to jump to. So I'll finish up for now and say thank you all for coming. We do this once a week, every week, same time. And I'm sure I'm going to see a lot of you in the next event as well.